Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to SuperCoach Edge, and it is an exciting time because this is my unveiling. I've taken back the curtain and I am showing my team reveal 2.0, like a bit of a lewd exhibitionist wearing a trench coat, flashing it open for you to see, and yeah, not that that would be a very good visual, but we are here of course to unveil the team and the second iteration, and I've been hard at work here fiddling around with my team, and I think this is probably, in essence, probably the 100th iteration of my team. I've been taking out single players, replacing them, and then overhauling the defense, overhauling the midfield, forward line, and the like. So it has been good fun, but of course we have ticked over to 2025. So in saying that, a very happy new year to all of you out there that do do celebrate. Of course, everyone celebrates New Year, but that do tune into our channel, of course, all the regulars and all the newbies as well. So having said that, bit of a segue. If you are new to our channel, you are in for quite the ride in 2025 because the preseason is arguably the funnest time because, we all have high hopes and, we're all dealing with a blank slate where we get to piece together our teams and we're like, yep, ultimate glory is within sight. But we are here to help you, I guess, edge a little bit closer, wink, wink, using the SuperCoach Edge moniker to, push you towards that glory a little bit closer, hopefully, with some of the research analysis that we will be providing across not just the preseason, but across the 2025 season itself as well. So if you have yet to subscribe to our channel, make sure to do so here on YouTube if you are watching us via these avenues. If you are listening to our audio podcast, of course, we would very much appreciate if you can give us a 5-star review. I'd say 6 stars, 7 stars, but unfortunately they don't offer that. But if you can give us a review as well, that'd be absolutely fantastic because I think Spotify, Apple Podcasts, they do allow it now. So if you have any kind words to say, feel free to leave it. Or you can just hit us up in the comment section down below if you are watching us on YouTube or via the social channels, of course. But we do appreciate all of the support. Now, of course, I am tackling things solo at the moment. That is until my usual partner in crime in Liam, the goose to my maverick, the maverick to my goose. Either way you want to look at it. He's been absolutely living it up over the course of the early part of the AFL preseason, enjoying his honeymoon abroad in Europe as he should. And he's been hopping across countries, eating, delicious local cuisines, snapping photos of the best sites and, tourist spots, of course, visiting those. But it goes to show no matter where you are in the world, no matter if you're on your honeymoon or otherwise with your beloved wife, the SuperCoach bug is always going to take hold, as we see here in this clip here that I pop up on screen. And for those listening to the podcast, what's happening here is his wife has sneakily videoed him ignoring some beautiful architecture somewhere in Europe. I think he might be in Spain, maybe Switzerland. And instead, he has his head buried in his phone, having a play around with the team picker. And this hasn't been happening once, but she's actually sent through multiple videos of this happening. So it's good to see that Liam, despite the fact he is abroad, enjoying life, enjoying the time of his life with his lovely now wife, he is putting in some hard yards when it comes to SuperCoach study. So good to see you, Liam, and we can't wait to have you back on deck. But we are here, of course, to check out my second iteration of my team reveal 2.0. So without further ado, let us get into it. Boo-boo. So we are back here with a blank slate. And of course, if you want to have a look at my the team that I, just cobble together willy-nilly, you will see that in my previous team reveal video. But I guess the purposes of that video in particular was just first and foremost catering to those super coaches out there that don't have access to the Team Picker and SuperCoach Plus. So it was just a matter of going through and identifying those, the price point of those notable players and mid prices, rookies, everything else. And in doing so, I just cobbled together a team. So I didn't really have too much thought being put into, I guess, catering for the early buys and the like. So, I know there were some people in the comment section being like, oh, have you really thought about the buys? Because this team doesn't look like it has. And well, you will correct whoever that person was that commented on that. So I am here to put a bit more thought into my team and go line by line yet again. So I have wiped the slate clean. As you can see here, it is a blank team. But as I said, if you want to compare to my previous team, feel free to go back and check out that video or have a listen to that podcast previous to this one. So let us get into things, and I guess I will kind of note those changes in my team that I can recall, but others, as I said, go back and have a look at that. First up, I did have Sam Flanders in my team, rounding out, I guess, the D1 spot, but on this occasion, I've actually faded him. I just think at that price point, 641.5K, I do think he's a little bit hefty in price. I spoke about it late last season, I think it was, during one of my team, review episodes, where I was kind of noting the amount of players that were kind of, above the 600K mark that were always going to drop in price. Even the most reliable. And, we spoke about Bontempelli in the preseason, in 2024, where he was priced over, I think it was 720K or something ridiculous, and he was always going to drop in price. Ended up dropping around about 50 to 60K, despite the fact that he was averaging 115 or thereabouts plus. And I sort of had a look into it, and I identified that more often than not, those 600K plus players have, an off game here or there, maybe two back-to-back, and they end up dropping in price. And I just think as a strategy going into this year, and I want to try it out, of course, it isn't, a cut and dry type analysis or, something I'm throwing out there, but I want to sort of limit strategically the amount of players that I have over 600K, because it just really limits the amount of money, obviously, that you have to spend across the rest of your team. So I want to sort of cherry pick these players. Having said all that, Sam Flanders was probably one of the more reliable players in 2024. I think he went over 100 every game bar 2 or 3 potentially. Let me have a quick look at this on the other screen here. He was just absolutely insane with his scoring and his consistency, really, which is what you want in SuperCoach, obviously. Ended up scoring 100 in 22 games out of 24, or 21 games out of 23, counting for the bye. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. Finished the season priced at 594.2K. Goes into this season with that really big bump up in price to the tune of around about 50K, 641.5K. And I just think he's overpriced. You'll notice with some players as well that despite the fact that they're finished on a particular price point, going into the next season, the SuperCoach algorithm or, pricing structure, they put a little bit of mayo on top of that. And in this case here, they've put, 50K virtually on top of the price of what Flanders finished at in 2024. So I do think he's a little bit overpriced in this case. I don't mind paying a little bit extra for players that provide consistency and security. But in this case here, I'm going to fade him for the time being, of course. I haven't shut the door on him completely across the course of the preseason. This may change, but I have opted to not start him in my team at the moment. So that's the one major change from the initial team that I cobbled together. And I have replaced him with Jack Sinclair. Now, Sinks, I ended the season with him, and just going to have a look here on DFS Australia, because there's a little bit of an asterisk with Jack Sinclair, and I had it last season. I didn't start him in my team, but he came home like an absolute freight train. Incredible end to the season. Just to the tune of the scores of, get this, so 111, 86, 123, 142, 99, 140, 88, 110, 143, 135, 147. And that dates all the way back from round 13 all the way to round 24. So really did hit his straps in the latter part of the season. Was very inconsistent to start the season in 2024. It was sort of teetering around scores of 80, 70, had a couple of breakout scores of 134, but then it wasn't until that round 13 came around where he started to hit his straps. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that he was kind of being relied upon to play more midfield time. And I do think that is kind of putting a little bit of a cap on his ceiling. Then from round 13 onwards, he was kind of playing a little bit more time, sharing time between, defense as well as, in the middle. But I just think that he plays his best footy when he's playing off the half-back line. And I think that Ross the Boss came to his senses with regards to that as well. We're still sharing time between, obviously, defense and midfield, but I do think that helped him in the latter part of the season find that consistent form. So I do think 592.2K, what you're paying for Sinclair compared to what he finished at, which was 594.7K at the end of the 2024 season, he's pretty much on point of what you're getting. Like it's not really, he hasn't been added the additional mayo on his price, much like Flanders has. So I think Sinclair, off the back of that and the way that he finished the season, presents a little bit of upside here, of course, remembering that Sinclair, previous to last season when he finished with the average of 109.9, he had 105.8, which is a little bit of a regression in 2023. And then that massive breakout season in 2022 when he averaged the 113.7. And prior to that, he only averaged 86.77 and whatnot. So I do think it really is dependent upon the role that he has in St Kilda's side. So it is something that we will have to monitor across the course of the pre-season. Now, in addition to Sinclair, we do have another guy that I'm very, very keen on, and I probably jumped over him. Apologies for this, because Sinclair is actually priced lower than this man, and it is Harry Sheezel. He was in my first iteration of my team picker, 635.6K. I spoke about him. A little bit wary about the fact that he probably will play a little bit more time in the midfield in 2025 for North Melbourne. I think this may put a little bit of a dampener on his scoring output at stages until he adjusts to, I guess, a different role, as opposed to being, a straight-up distributor off half-back, because he's such a great user of the footy, as we know. But he sticks around in my team, and I do think I probably will stick around with him. It's probably going to be one of the most owned players in defence as well when it comes to the kickoff of the season. So he's in my side at the moment. If I don't go for Shees, it probably will be Flanders. The difference in price between these two guys is, 9K. So I think you could probably have both of these guys in your team, yes, like I had in my first team iteration, but I do think it puts a little bit of a handcuff in terms of, what you can do with the rest of your team with the salary cap at your disposal. So Sheezel is in my team. He's there at D1, and Sinclair, apologies, I got that incorrect. He is my D2. So those are the two guys first up. Next up, we have a guy that was in my team as well and sticks around there. And it is, I'll type his name in here because otherwise I'll be scrolling for ages. It is Callum Mills, 357.2K. The sort of player that, again, much like Sinclair, is probably dependent upon where he plays. We've seen in the past where he has been quite a high ceiling scorer. Dating back to, 2022, he averaged 115.1 average, 112.4 in 2021. And 101.4 in 2020. Of course, those averages have been adjusted based upon, games where he's been going off injured and stuff. So taking that into account. But, 2023 had a down season, 91.5. And then 2024, of course, he had the injury interrupted preseason, didn't make his return until later in the season and averaged 74.4. So, I think, again, it is dependent upon where he plays. Didn't score all that well in his return to 2024, where he scored scores of 55, 69, 57, 66, 97, 98, and 79. Now, you will note those three games to end the season, that's when he was playing no midfield time. So he was playing traditionally as a defender, 97, 98, 79. Those are the games there where he played from round 18, 19, 21, and 22. He was playing in the midfield a little bit more compared to, off defense. And he was actually playing off the forward line at various stages as well. So 55, 69, 57, and 66. So we don't really want to see him playing too much time in the midfield. But having said that, he has had a little bit of experience in the midfield across the journey as well and been able to score quite well, sharing his time between halfback in the midfield, where he's had, CBAs of around about 40%. He's been able to score okay. So probably came down to fitness more than anything, limited preseason, virtually no preseason at all due to his injury, which came off the back of, some wrestling injury drama that he had with a teammate. But I think at that price point and what he can provide in upside, Callum Mills, I think he's a no-brainer. So he sticks around in my team. Next up is another guy that I think is another no-brainer. Popular selection in the preseason for 2024, and it is Kitty Coleman, 269.1K. And unfortunately, as we know, did his ACL in round one, or opening round, should say, against Carlton. And I remember I was there at the ground live at the Gabba, and it was a terrible sight to see. Only had the, obviously, score of 37 off the back of that, 56 minutes game time. But I do think that, there's probably questions there. People are probably asking, what about Zorko? I do think that, Kitty Coleman just has that pure foot skill where they want to play him off the half-back line. And, who knows? Zorko, there's enough mouths to feed in that sense there by having a couple of guys play that role. We've seen it across multiple teams where you have a couple of distributors there. One's probably more relied upon than the other. One's probably, breaking lines. The other one is a link-up type player when they're taking kickouts. And, they're sport for choice here, the Lions, because, Zorko is such a good user of the footy, as we know, much like Coleman. So, do they move Zorko maybe a bit higher up the ground? We'll just have to wait and see. But I am confident that Coleman will be backed in as one of their key distributors off half back. So he's sticking around in my team and probably will for the remainder of the preseason. Knock on wood that he is fit. And, multiple sources have come out of the line saying that he will be ready to hit the ground running for the preseason games and, of course, for the opening rounds. So Coleman comes in at D4. Next up is another guy that has moved out of my team, and I might speed this up because I've spoken about these guys in the previous video. So if you want to see a bit more of a, analysis of these players or my chat about them, check that video out. But Travalia is the other player that comes in at D5 for St Kilda. DPP player, which is extra handy as well as a defender midfielder. 172k on the dot, and I just think he's going to get bulk opportunity in St Kilda's side, and he's someone that's probably mooted as a bit of a halfback distributor that might sort of push into the midfield and get rotated through there, which might bode well for Sinclair off the back of that. It might mean that Sinclair plays a bit more time off the halfback. Alternatively, it might flip. Sinclair may play more time through the middle to allow some extra game time in defence for Travalia. So we'll have to just keep an eye on that. But I think he will be, again, one of the more popular selections in terms of rookies, especially in defence. Moving on to D5, and again, another player that hasn't moved out of my side, and it is the rookie from Essendon, Saad Al-Hawley, 119.9k. He's a defender, midfielder as well, which is extra handy, DPP. And, he's been spoken about, even when they picked him up as a potential late debutant in 2024, but with injury curtailing the late part of his season, he was unable to do so. But even in the preseason now, he's been spoken about as someone that could come in as a bit of a, like his namesake, like an Adam Saad, and, really be that distributor off halfback. So he is definitely one to watch, but again, should be a popular selection. Again, these are the players that I've kind of had in my team. Bo Allen, for West Coast, should get probably some of the best opportunity. If you're playing at West Coast and you've got a bit of half a talent, you'll get a bit of an opportunity here. And he should get that, Bo Allen. Western Australian local, of course, defender midfielder again, which is, again, very, very handy. A lot of these guys have DPP that I have in my defence. But 136k, I think, should be a relative bargain and should hit the ground running in the West Coast colours. And alongside him is a player that I've brought into my team, which wasn't in my initial squad, and it is Caleb Smith, 121.2k from Richmond. Played 4 games, I think it was sort of late-ish in 2024. I'll just bring him up here on DFS Australia and just have a look at his scoring. And he's played a couple of sub games as well, so kind of hard to get a big read on the way he can play and what he can provide. But of the other 2 games that he played, obviously 4 in total, he was able to score a 57 and a 30. So not the, not the best, but in terms of that price point, and then we're talking about obviously opportunity with Richmond, Wooden Spoon team. They're going to be blooding as many youngsters as they can. So he's a big watch. He's not a definitive player, lock and load in my squad as yet, but he's just going to be a bit of a placeholder and might be a bit of a cheapie that we could start with in our sides as a bit of a nice cash cow in 2025. I did have Gipkiss in this spot previous, 153.6k, so 32k more expensive than Smith. Coming off an ACL, I think he is best 22, Gipkiss. So we'll just have to keep a watch on him in terms of his fitness. Knock on wood for the young fella that he gets an injury-free run on it, because he's had a wretched run to start his career in the yellow and black. So he's probably the other player that I'd be looking at. But let's now move on to the midfield. And I don't think I had this man in my team, and I slapped myself across the back of the head and was like, what are you doing? And it is Marcus Bontempelli, 681k on the dot. And we all know what he can provide. He averaged 126.4 in 2024. And the good thing about this as well is we have to keep in mind that Bont as I said earlier, he started the season way more expensive than what he's priced at the moment. So he started the season in 2024 priced at 724.6K, which I remember then was super eye-watering, and we're like, do we fade him? Do we start him? We all knew that for those of us that started him, which was over 51.5% of the competition, that he was going to drop in price at some stage or another, because the higher the price point, the more unsustainable the average that you have to, sustain in order to keep that price point. So he was always going to have, a little bit of a down game, which he had in the early part of the season, that saw his price plummet from 724.6K to 614K in round 7. So came at, 100K discount for those people that didn't start him. And then his, ownership jumped up off the back of that as well. So, with Bont, he comes in priced at this juicy price. And I say juicy relative to, again, what he was priced at to start the 2024 season. So he comes into 2025 priced at 681K, as I said, on the dot. Compared to last year, 724, that's a difference of, 43K, really. So that's a really nice discount there. Ended the season in 2024 priced at 665.8K. So yes, he's had a little bit of mayo put on his price, but we'll probably afford to take that. That's fine, because we know what we're getting with Bont. He's been one of the more consistent performers across the journey. I won't go into his, history, with the fine-tooth comb, because we know what he can provide. So I just think he's that sort of player that you need in your team that provides, a captaincy option or a VC loophole option week after week. And we know Bont can provide that. So he is in my team at M1. M2 is another one that is a little bit more questionable, because there is recent news that's come out that Nick Dacos, he may be battling a bit of plantar fasciitis. I think that's what it was. So a bit of a foot injury, and it's a type of injury that can, stick around unless you've fully, injured the plantar fasciitis. A lot of people strain it, or there's a slight tear, and it's hard for them to get back to their full running capacity, and it lingers. I think there's a real gruesome story. I think it was Robert Harvey back in the day where he injured his plantar fasciitis, and he deliberately jumped off a chair until he actually fully tore the plantar fasciitis, which is just absolutely insane. But in order to do that, it just allowed that injury to repair itself properly as opposed to lingering. So don't do that. If you have that sort of injury, that's just ridiculous. But Nicky Dacos could be, nursing that injury across the preseason and maybe into the season proper. So he's in my team at the moment just because of the fact that he is an absolutely insane superstar player, as we know, and SuperCoach at that. But a little bit of an asterisk. Going to keep a watch on how he is performing and how he's traveling fitness-wise across the preseason. And if he doesn't look 100% fit, I'm going to be moving him on. Probably more than likely to a guy that I don't have in my team, obviously, at the moment, but it is Zach Butters, who, bit of a spoiler alert, isn't in my team at the moment, was in my team initially, but goes out of the team. So Bont came in, Butters went out. So at M3, we have another player that probably should be priced around traditionally 600K, but had a obviously injury and interrupted season in 2024, and it is Christian Petrarca, 556.2K. Incredible value. I spoke about him again in the previous team iteration video, and I think, he again should be priced 50, 60K more expensive than what he currently is. What I will say is, and I hope that he's back to full fitness, but did come out in recent days that he's actually fractured a rib, I think it was, or he's got a cracked rib. Not to worry about. It is an impact injury. It will repair. That's totally fine. So he's got enough time to, still hit the gym, still do his kicking, all that sort of stuff, but no contact at training. But Petrarca, just hopefully, psychologically, because he sustained that spleen injury that could have killed him. And psychologically, he's spoken about this, that it did affect him mentally. So hopefully he can still go out there and still play the way that he plays, because it is that bash and crash nature. And that's really what he does best. So hopefully he can go out and perform to his peak. And we can get rewarded in SuperCoach. So we'll be tracking him, how he goes across the course of the preseason. And likewise, his teammate as well, who's still in my team. And it is, of course, Clary Oliver, 451.6k, a big discount on what he probably should be priced at again, close to that 600k mark. So comes in roughly 150k cheaper than what he should be priced at. We all know what he can provide when he's at the top of his game. He's battled a fair few off-field issues, and we're hopeful, 2 seasons down the line now that he's been sort of, trying to overcome these issues. Hopefully this is the turning point now for Clary, where he can get back to full fitness, get back to, full form, and, be the super coach star that we know and love, the absolute pink sweaty pig, as we like to call him here at SuperCoach Edge. So, we'll keep watch on him. Next up, we have another guy who's a newbie in our side, and it is James Peatling, 352.8k, former GWS Giant, crosses over to the Crows. And I'll bring him up here on DFS Australia, because the one thing that I really love about Peatling, and it goes back to the point of, trying to pinpoint players that present a lot of upside, comes down to opportunity and, role, I guess. Is there a different, is he going to a different team that's going to allow him to go into a role that's favourable to Supercoach scoring? And I think in this case with Peatling, it will. If we have a look at Peatling's scoring when he has been at the Giants, he's had a whole host of, starting sub-vests, but having, despite, I guess, being those starting subs, he's been able to have really nice points per minute, nudging or even over the 1 point per minute mark, which is, I guess, the point of what is a very, very good player. And, all it came down to for him was just game time and opportunity. So when he was able to play, sustained minutes, when he obviously wasn't the sub, he scored 83, 116. He's had a 56, bit of a down game, 111, and then a 93, a 133, a 96, 100, bit of a down game with a 40 against Freo. May have been potentially tagged there. A 97, 99, and 66 to end the season. And he's had an uptick in CBAs as well for a bulk of those scores in the late part of the 2024 season. So again, he presents a whole lot of upside here. If we even just isolate the last 8 games of the season, which included that game of 40, he's averaged 90.5 across those 8 games. So at that price point that we're getting him at 352.8k, is a big bargain, and would go up around about 150, maybe 200k on his starting price if he can recapture those that average. And I think he will. There's going to be opportunity there at the Crows going into the midfield. There's been a big, I guess, knock on the Crows engine room because of the fact that they've been so, one-paced. They've been very slow. Rory Laird isn't blessed with speed. Matt Crouch is another one as well. And I think, Peatling will come in and provide a little bit of X factor there, a little bit more speed, much like obviously Sam Draper as well, who we'll speak about in a moment, who's still in our team. And, Peatling, as I said, opportunity, big tick. And the role, big tick. He's going to get bulk minutes in the midfield, probably even more so than what he was getting at the Giants. So there's that correlation there of when he had greater game time and more CBAs, that his scoring went up and up. And he's got already in his kit bag the ability to score quite well in terms of points per minute. So we really like the look of Peatling, and he is in our team. Philippou, spoke about him in the previous video, so I won't speak about him too much, but again, he has reclaimed his DPP, which is even more handy as a forward mid, 313.8k. Going to get, again, opportunity. He's going to get role at St Kilda, but even more so as well, he flashed a lot of that scoring in the back part of 2024 where he looked really, really good. So again, Philippou, I think a lot of people will be jumping on him. It probably just comes down to, where do you start him in your team? Do you start him up forward? Do you start him in the midfield? It's probably much for muchness. But, if you've got him in the midfield or up forward, just make sure you have that DPP swing, because it can become very, very handy. But just, a bit of a snapshot of his last 4 games of the season, where he was able to play bulk minutes in the midfield and get ample game time, 112, 101, 85, and 80. And interestingly enough, 3 of those 4 games, he had CBAs of 63%, 68%, 57%. And then the game against Carlton, he had 0 CBAs, but yet still scored 80. He played a bit more time up forward compared to in the middle. So it just shows that, again, another string to his bow, even though he isn't, getting minutes in the midfield, he's able to score quite well. So he is just maturing to that really nice prospect that we all saw in the junior years, and the Saints and Saints fans should be very, very happy with the player that they've got in their ranks. So Philippou is in my team. And likewise as well, another young superstar that I'm very, very happy the Baggers have in our team. It is Jagger Smith, 194.5k, an absolute accumulator at junior level, and I think we'll get opportunity at Carlton. We've got Cripps, we've got Walsh, we've got Chera. I think they'll be phasing out, by and large, Hewitt, which is kind of what they've done across the past maybe year and a half. Obviously, Matt Kennedy isn't there. We've got Cooper Lord as another young player who has shown quite a bit of promise in his later games as well. But Jagger Smith is going to come in there and really, really help us with some nice speed, nice injection of foot skills as well. So he's going to be the overlap type player, the run and gun, just, relentless endurance. So I really like the look of Jagger. So he is a lock and load for me, no doubting, especially as a Carlton supporter as well. That is bias aside, I will say. I just think he's going to get great opportunity and he will be able to score quite well, and he has done so at the junior levels. Next to him, we have Levi Ashcroft. I'm not as bullish on Levi, I must admit, because it's hard to really get a read on how he's going to fit into Brisbane's lineup. Does he go into the engine room straight away? I don't know. Or does he play a little bit more time off off half forward? Maybe a little bit of a thing, maybe rotating off that. So we'll just have to wait and see as to who sort of makes way out of Brisbane's engine room in order to allow Ashcroft to shift into there. But he's in our sides at the moment. I spoke of Sid Draper from the Crows, 190k, another accumulator, just one of the best evasive players that you'll see at junior level, and he's going to be a very, very tantalising prospect to watch. Will, again, provide that speed, that much-needed speed that the Crows have been lacking in recent seasons, so he's a lock and load, has played at SANFL level and performed quite well as well, so he is definitely in our team. Alongside him is a new player that I brought into my team, Xavier Lindsay, 158.5k for the Ds. I think he probably will get an opportunity very, very early on. Again, it's hard to get a read on these cash cows and these new rookies coming through the ranks until we see them in action across the preseason. So hoping for good things for Xavier Lindsay. And then we have, of course, Elijah Hewitt, injury-interrupted year in 2024 for the West Coast Eagles, 122.8k, is a forward, is a mid, so that DPP is very, very handy and should make us bulk cash and get great opportunity. Moving into the rucks, and we're speeding things up now. Tristan Cherry was in our side in our last team iteration, and likewise is another guy that comes in at a bit of a discount compared to probably what he would have entered the season priced at, considering what he was able to produce. 547.1 is Tom De Koning. I think he's our preferred ruckman. I will say that now. He's that new age ruck, the endurance machine, the extra sort of midfielder, X factor, all that sort of stuff that he will be able to, I guess, recapture his scoring in the back half of 2024 like we saw. Again, he's probably got that now extra string to his bow where he can roam around the ground and do it with great effect. I guess that's been a big knock on his game, and I will say that as a Carlton supporter where he hasn't really done enough around the ground, but we saw, especially in the second half of 2024, he was able to, not only impact in the ruck, but around the ground as well. Like if we look at his breakdown in disposals and everything else from round, say, 10 onwards, I will say round 11, because round 10, I think that might have been injury impacted. But yeah, round 11, he scored 131. Round 12, 140, 146, 176, 128, 95, 77, and 59. So end of the season, and that 59, of course, was injury affected. That 59, I should say, was against the Lions, where he only played, what was the time on ground? 50% game time. So, would have probably scored if he played a full game around about 120 odd. But he did go off injured in round 19 as well. As we know, against North Melbourne, he injured, his foot and ankle or something, and shoulder maybe. He had a couple of injuries that he had to nurse and then returned against the Lions in the elimination final, yeah. So if we discount both of those games and limit it to those games where he was able to score full tilt, from rounds 11, 12, 13, 15, 17, and 18, he averaged 136. Looked really, really good. And as I said, in those games, he had 25 disposals, 18, 24, 25, 24, and 19. and a whole bulk of hitouts as well. But really, again, that sort of player that has taken the next step in his game and I guess captured the sort of form that, Carlton and us supporters were hoping that he would. So incredible player, and he is in my team at the moment. To R3, and we have just a bit of a placeholder here at the moment in Joe Pike from the Cats. A bit of a placeholder here for another player who the Saints picked up via their SSP selection, 26-year-old Harry Boyd from the Sandful, who won the Magarey Medal in 2024. So big raps on this mature age player. And I think they kind of want to St Kilda have that, I guess the 1-2 punch with, Marshall as well as Harry Boyd. I guess if you're comparing it to in recent seasons, Paddy Ryder and Marshall, when they were kind of swinging between the forward line and the ruck, and they kind of want to add an extra layer of unpredictability to their ruck lineup and their forward line at the same time as well. So really keeping an eye on that. And if good old Harry, if he can be a starter in round one, that's going to be very, very interesting. But should come in bottom priced at 99.1k. So good old Joe Pike is there as that placeholder. Moving on to the forward line. And we have, of course, I think this hasn't changed at all, so we'll just pretty much go through it willy-nilly. Horn Francis, I think, is going to be one of the more owned players in the game, especially considering that he does have forward midfield status. We also have McRae, who, again, will be one of the more owned players. And again, the forward line, it's going to be pretty much cookie cutter, you'd probably say. Bailey Smith, another one, comes in at F3. F4 comes in Caleb Daniel, another player who finds himself at another team, a new team. New player in my team is Tom Lynch. I didn't have him in my initial team iteration, but I think at that price point, 183.2k, he's obviously best 22. Just need to make sure that he is 100% fighting fit, because he's battled with soft tissue injuries and the like across the recent seasons. And he's at that, I guess, age now where he can break down at the drop of a hat. So he's in our team at the moment, just as that playing cash cow. Can have a really big ceiling, I will say, scoring ceiling, but, with Richmond now struggling, it does put a little bit of an ask on him to score well when his midfield is still developing. They're quite young. Can they get the footy down there enough for him to output enough of a decent score to be an on-field scorer in SuperCoach? The other one is Pal Pepper, 180.5k. Has traditionally been playing up forward, I will say, in recent seasons, and has shown that he is able to average around about that 70 mark. So if we look traditionally from sort of season 2022, 2023, and obviously the start of 2024, only played the 3 games, did his ACL from memory. In season 2022, his average was 74.2. In 2023, 65.1, and then of course only played the 3 games for an average of 58.5 in 2024. So if you can average close to that 70 mark, still playing up forward, that's the expectation there. Might sort of rotate through the middle at various stages, but coming back for an ACL, they probably want to sort of nurse him anyway. So good role for him to play up forward. And if he can average 70, he's going to go up 200k quite easily. So is a best 22 player and should be a very, very nice playing cash cow for us. On the bench, still the same for us, Ashton Moyer. In my opinion, I think he will play a majority of the season. He flashed enough in the back part of 2024 to suggest that he does belong at senior level. And I think we need an extra X factor there in our team, without Martin in the side anymore. Ashton Moyer, I think he can offer a little bit more just in terms of, playing that mid-sized to, tall type player, but can also be quite agile enough to be crumbing to the feet of Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. So I think he will play, and he will be a very nice cash cow priced at 119.9k. And then we also have this man here who sticks around in our team, Neil Erasmus, forward midfielder from Freo. And hopefully he gets a good run in it and should be a very, very nice cash cow. And then to round things out with the flex, probably no surprise here, everyone has him in their team. Matt Flynn, 261.9k. Again, should be number one ruck for West Coast and should be able to average around about that 80 average mark, I think. And at that price point, should make easily 200k plus. But that's it, ladies and gents. We'll round things out there. I've just noticed we've been recording for around about 40 minutes, so a bit longer than what I was hoping to do. But hopefully there's enough there for you to pick apart and have a bit of a discussion with. But I guess if I am comparing this team with my previous team, I am quite happy with the structure of it. In terms of, the early buys, there's Sydney. I might pull it up here actually as well. I might end it just with a comment on that because of the fact that, there's so many comments and questions about, structuring for the buys and whatnot, but we do have to keep in mind that with the buys across the course of the season, it is best 18. So with the early buys, those teams that are playing in round 0, the opening round, in terms of those guys that I have that have the early buy in round 2, it is Gold Coast and the Giants. I've only got, in fact, got no players from either team at the moment, so I'm fine there. For round 3, the Lions, Collingwood, Geelong, and Sydney, they have the bye, so I'm impacted in terms of Kitty and Coleman, that's one. Callum Mills, that's another one. Levi Ashcroft, Dacos, that's another one as well. Bailey Smith, should mention, I can't forget him. And then with round 4, it's Hawthorn and Essendon. Al Hawley, he's one. That's it, I think. There's no Hawthorn players. So I've kind of structured the team there where I'm not being left high and dry. But again, don't worry. I think as long as you have best 18, you're totally fine. We've got to remind ourselves as well that we have the flex this season, which is that extra player. The lowest scoring player in our team is going to drop out anyway. So if you have best 18 plus the flex, it means you've virtually got an extra player that will replace that lowest scoring player. If you have any more than 18, you can obviously try and do some loopholes off the bench, but really don't overthink things. I think people put too much emphasis on the early buys, and a lot of people were freaking out, I remember in 2024, and I had a couple of players there which, didn't really impact me at all because I had, those players that were sharing the same buy, they were spread across my team. I think where you run into an issue is where they're sort of isolated and concentrated in a specific position. So if you have, 2 or 3 players that have the same buy in defense or midfield or rucks or forwards or whatever, that's where you run into issues because you obviously only have 2, 3 players off the bench that you can kind of replace them with. And if you're having to rely upon bench players, and a lot of the players in the early part of the season will be rookie players who will probably punch out, inconsistent scores, that's where you kind of run into trouble. But if you have, again, those players that have the early season buys that may happen in the same week, but if they're spread out across your team and there's no conflicts there, I think you should be able to cover them. Yes, I know that, again, it's still the same applies that you're having to cover those players with rookies, but again, we have the flex this time around as well. So I think if you have best 18, if you have 19 players, it's even better. But we have that flex there to give us a little bit of insurance as well. I might just round things out as well, just with a few players that I have my eye on that I didn't speak about, that I might be keen on bringing into my team, pending on how they're travelling across the course of the preseason. Brayshaw is definitely one, 591.8k in the midfield. Did battle with, fitness issues throughout 2024, and we saw in the back part of the season where he actually just hit his straps, regained full fitness and looked really, really good, but I am worried about him attracting the tag at various stages. Him and Sarong kind of, I'm toing and froing between. These two guys are magnets for opposition taggers. So I think at that price point, he presents a bit of value, but again, not so bullish on him because I am worried about that tag. Will Day, I think, is definitely one who I think is underpriced, 491.3k. At the top of his game when he is fit, we know he's a tackling machine and can score quite well. Then I've also got another left field one who a lot of people probably haven't even spoken about. It is Cooper Lord from my mob, 253.8k. In my opinion, should play every single game for the remainder of the year. We don't have Matt Kennedy in the side anymore. As I said, George Hewitt, he is being phased out of sort of that engine room rotation for Carlton. And, we don't have the likes of Jack Carroll in the side anymore as well. He's now at St Kilda. So Jack Carroll was probably neck and neck with Cooper Lord in terms of trying to get a bit of a crack at senior level. Him no longer being there says to me that they're placing a bit of responsibility on the shoulders of Lord to come in and be that regular best 22 player. And then, of course, as I said, with Matt Kennedy no longer being there, Matt Kennedy has been that, at the trenches type contested player, and Cooper Lord is very much that same player as well. I'll just quickly speak about, and I'll probably do this at greater length in another video, but just to sort of drive home my thinking behind this is the fact that he loves a cuddle. Had 7 tackles in the round 24 game, where he scored an 88, and then 69 points as well, ding ding, against West Coast in his first game in round 23. So even at VFL level, he's had 9 tackles, 6 tackles, 7, 4, 6, 9, 5, 4, 4, 5. So he's that sort of player that, I love, because anyone that tackles easy points, as we know, 4 points at a time accruing, and it really means that you don't have to rely upon, bulk disposals, marks, all that sort of stuff, and even disposal efficiency, everything else. But even with him, he is a very good user of the footy, 73% disposal efficiency in his first game, and then 79% off 19 disposals as well. So I really do like the look of him. Only thing is that he does have that awkward price point, which is 253.8k. And for me, it probably comes down to Peatling or Cooper Lord in that same position, unless I can free up some extra money. Outside of that is probably Satis from the Dons, 191.2k, is a forward midfielder. So probably just considering him off the back of the fact that he is forward eligible. But I just don't know if he's going to be best 22 at this stage. If he cracks the Dons team and looks really good across the preseason, I might look at him a bit closer. But big knock in his game is his disposal efficiency. So we'll have to wait and see how things track with him. But that is it, ladies and gents. We'll end things there. That is my team, as you can see it, and relatively happy with that. So we'll save the team, and that is that. Let us know, as I said, with regards to any comments and questions you may have down below. If you are new to the channel, strap yourselves in, because we are in for another big season. This is our 5th season that Liam and I have been doing SuperCoach Edge, and we are ramping it up year after year and love it every single year. And we do love your support as always as well. So if you are yet to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, feel free to do so, because that is the best way to let us know that you are enjoying our content. Apart from, of course, all the comments and love and, all the other stuff that you want to send through, gags, barbs, all that sort of stuff. But if you are tuning into our audio podcast as well, feel free to give us a review and a rating as well. We really do appreciate the support. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.